won't just be central office
No,
saying, oh, this is the way to do it. There'll be a lot of learning here, and that's going to move back.
Yeah, it's already happening to a couple of them.
Yeah, absolutely fascinating.
Yeah. Because the person who's the program director from the university,
Thank you very much. Thank you.
he talked about a couple of cases where there was a local experience which has impacted their overall strategy in terms of using CSR as a non-negotiable instrument.
I think CSR professionals in India will find themselves very remarkable internationally in 5 to 10 years' time.
Sweet spot.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, because you do bring something to the table because it's such a composite society that India is. Like you have a metropolitan culture, then you have the marketplace, then you have the one in between. And so you bring those three perspectives. It's not the same as the other markets worldwide.
I agree.
So more complexity you use to handling, the better you are equipped to understand the way.
How did you get into Madrid bus in India? It was just a coincidence?
It's a route. So, no, well, I'm here with my wife because of my wife's work.
She's here working.
We're European originally, British. My wife happened to work for the Walt Disney Company in London, and then they said, "Fine, go to California." And I said, "I did my stuff. This is your time, sweetie." So we went to California, and then 2 years ago, the Disney Corporation bought out an Indian company called UTV.
Oh, yeah.
And it's an acquisition. In the way that these things go, you can hear the crunch from a long distance away. So the acquisition was made, and then about 9 months later, the call went out, we need people from California to come into the merging operations in India and start to regularize the areas. So my wife's area is HR, and she's therefore taken some time to run HR for a merging operation here. And I said, well, I'll go with you, that's great. I can't work. I can't get a visa to work here. So I said, put me in touch with some NGOs. And one of the NGOs happened to be Magic Bus. And I was intrigued by the program, actually, the effectiveness of the program. And I was intrigued by their story. So I said to Matthew, look, I know for a fact that volunteers are a pain for NGOs. Because, you're a volunteer. Well, you're all enthusiastic. You think you've got a right to do something because you're giving your time. And, from the point of view of the NGO, you haven't got any skills. You don't know the sector. You can't speak the language. What do you think you're going to do? So I said to Matthew, I understand. However, I've got a lot of strange career experiences and background. So you tell me what you think will work, and then if it works out good, if not, fine, no problem. And 2 or 3 weeks later, somebody showed up at the side of the desk and said, "Oh, I've got your business cards." And I said, "What do you mean you got my business cards?" So I got a role, and that's the way it happened. And
which area do you look after?
I've spent time helping them, particularly, it's what's called special projects. So as Aaron said, they're in expansion. So there's a huge amount of background building to build capacity and build capability and functionality inside the organ. It becomes like a pyramid. If you're trying to build the top of the pyramid a little bit higher, then the base has to get huge very quickly. And that's the area I've been trying to help them with, building the back office functionality, particularly things like just a proper IT system. They're still running their program reporting on Excel spreadsheets. Little individual operations that are then printed, and somebody collates the data, and then they write another report and the rest of that. Well, that's, a business would have solved that, would have had to have solved it 5 years ago. But because it's NGO, the money keeps getting spent on the program, and it becomes harder to say to somebody, we really need an IT system. Like, what? You're supposed to be spending the money, helping the kids. What do you need it? So I've helped them with a bit of fundraising, and a bit of project management, and then finding the right technical pieces to slot in and do that sort of thing. So within about 12 months now, they should end up with a really, really impressive data management IT system that will mean that as they roll the program out, as they roll towards this 1 million children inside the program, you can have community organisers and field mentors is their base structure down in the program. Running hundreds, thousands of sessions in villages. And the community organiser, who's an unpaid volunteer in the community, probably from the program herself, 3 or 4 years, or herself, 3 or 4 years, please, can stand there with an ordinary phone, a mobile phone, and there'll be an app on the phone that will be linkable to the database, and it will download the session details. So it'll turn up at the session, and it'll be, okay, this is session 9 for group so-and-so in village this. These are the list of the children that you enrolled 10 weeks ago. This is what they've done so far. Now record their attendance and ask them the questions. Did you go to school? Have you had a health problem? Has there been any violence? Have you had a problem? Have you seen this or something like that? And then that platform will be so well set up that as long as you have a mobile signal, it will be able to upload and the program will crunch the data.
Is it an RDBMS? Is it an RDBMS system that
No, it'll run over the mobile telephone network, and it'll be app-based. There will be some specialised apps distributed, but fundamentally will run from the handsets that people already have in their hands.
That's the user end, but what about the back end?
Oh, the back end will be will be properly database supported, and it'll be it's being put together by a company called Mastic, who's very well known in the future, and they'll build a proper detail management center. And they'll probably host it as well. Okay. So that's the sort of thing that an NGO has to do today. It has to raise its game as well, and they need help from all sorts of areas to do that. So that's what I've been
Interesting.
doing. And also, Aaron who's in charge of, he's all India fundraising. So he's started to say, it's nice just to do things with people, and nice just to present and talk.
Yeah.
So,
Listening.
yeah, he and I go along and we represent Magic Bus, but if somebody wants to talk about development in the agricultural sector or something like that, we'll talk about that. Or I'll talk about the history of CSR or something like that.
Between the two of you.
Yeah, we do a double act.
It's very useful. Extremely useful. You came across as someone who's actually worked in the sector for like 10 years. Really.
Like I said, it's, everything that's called CSR now seems to have crept up on me sort of from the start. And originally I was an environmental scientist. And I was an environmental scientist in the days when you couldn't get environmental scientists. It was only just starting as a discipline. And in fact, the reason I ended up working in industry was they were one of the few, chemicals was one of the few sectors who would employ environmental scientists.
Okay.
So that's how I ended up there. But the wheel has gone full circle. It's now if I tell people I'm an environmental scientist, they're like, well, that's so mainstream. Environmental science is all over the place. Whatever. Just because I was always interested in the way things worked together. I was interested in not single disciplines, but in the way lots of areas would work together. So if you're a life scientist, instead of ending up as a botanist, or a zoologist, that was what people did in those days. In fact, I do remember I went for research funding at one of the universities in the UK, for postgraduate funding, and the professor laughed at me. He said, "What? you did a degree in environmental science?" He said, "Well, that was stupid, wasn't it?" I did it purely for interest. As it so happens, the world has turned around so that what was an interest for me kept popping up, as I say. I worked. So I went to work in the chemical industry, and as it happened, I worked in agrochemicals, and that was in 1981. 1984, you had Bhopal. 1986, you had the Rhine spills. And as I was saying to you earlier, by the time it came to the 1990s, and I was working for CDC, the Commonwealth Development Corporation, I was no longer involved in writing safety manuals for users in agrochemicals, which is part of CSR. It's a big problem if you're, for example, the cotton. We're all wearing cotton. We now understand that the cotton industry has a huge labour footprint and impact on labourers, and a huge environmental impact. Back in the days when I was taking care of labour standards and use in the field, it was not understood. When you roll forward to the 1990s, I was working for the Commonwealth Development Corporation. I was able to do supermarket deals in Britain for organically produced cotton that had a certification, organic certification, that ran from the field with all the monitoring of social standards and worker standards and pesticide residues and water usage, all the way through to a logo on a pack sitting on a supermarket shelf in a developed country that could charge a 20% premium because it was organically produced. That was a whole market that didn't exist when I started. And that was the 80s to the 90s, and then by the thousands, I was able to take part in a private equity investment fund that succeeded in raising capital from corporates and pension funds and who wanted to make very long-term bets on environmental markets. So we were going to people like the General Electric Pension Fund, and we were saying to them, there's a market coming for carbon futures. It's not here yet, but there's a market coming for carbon futures. The big element in stakeholding in carbon futures will be forestry, because forestry is involved in both the production of carbon load and an uptake of carbon. If you take a 30-year position in our fund, we will put the money into sustainable forestry in places like Southeast Asia, or Brazil, or Africa. And it was possible to do that. We raised a vast amount of money between 2000, 2004, 2005 from investors who were so savvy about CSR issues. They were so well briefed and so sophisticated in their knowledge of the issues and their thinking and the business opportunity that they were prepared to give tens of millions of dollars of their funding for us to put into investments, money-making investments, with sustainability foundations for the next 30 years. So that's what I say, that CSR crept up on my time working, and it's become more than a social movement. It's become a genuine part of the society globally over the next 50 years. And I think it's fantastic that you're in a country which right now, this year, has done something new.
One of the box.
Yeah, I ended up...
impact.
Absolutely, absolutely. I ended up here. As I said, by accident. I ended up working in a charity by accident, and then all of a sudden the government said, "Oh, we're going to do this," and yes, well, whatever. All my network outside India now says, "Wow, you really knew what you were doing when you ended up in India." No, I've not known anything about this from the start. But what's now called CSR has risen as a trend for decades, in point of fact. And it's fascinating to see the point it's got to here. It really is.
How do you think the rise of social media has impacted this?
Well, clearly a lot. Because it's a youth development, because it's a ground roots development, because it's altered the speed of communication and the speed of organisation. And it will continue to do that for CSR, just the way it does for CSR issues, just the way it does for any. Social media will also be a major tool for you as CSR professionals. I mean, your future employers are barely understanding how to use social media. One of the corporate functions, I predict, one of the corporate functions that will turn out to be a promoter of social media inside corporations will be CSR. So you're going to have to know your Twitters from your tweeters and your Facebooks from your Weebos, and you're going to have to become very, very smart at working with your communications department and your marketeers, at developing your story.
I want to ask you two questions. One is about standard Excel pricing. So what is you were discussing about the main company. What is the possibility of comparing it with the conventional cotton market as compared to the GMOs which are more this thing?
So it's a question about cotton, where that supply chain will go, and particularly how it will impact the producers, the ground producers. The first thing I'd say is that cotton is a tough crop. Have any of you ever worked with cotton in the field? Have you ever planted cotton or come from a farming family or you picked cotton?
I've been studying in the cotton and textiles.
Yeah, cotton is it's a wonderful product. It has all the benefits of high quality, and it's workable and it's biodegradable and all the rest of the stuff like that. As a production, cotton is a very, very tough crop. And traditionally, it's been brutal work in the fields and in the factories, and has been for hundreds of years. So cotton comes with a very, very long trail of huge social impacts, a lot of it negative, and environmental impacts. Sorry? Yes, and the environment. Yes, it comes with a very long trail, and yet it's a huge global market. So a lot of those practices and structures are deeply entrenched. You can't suddenly say, well, okay, the entire global cotton production is going to be turned over to ethical, sustainable, environmental friendly cotton. You would destroy the livelihoods for tens of millions of people around the world. You can't do that. So it has to be a gradual working back, probably from the marketplace, hand in hand with major cotton processors like the textile companies and the finished goods companies, then making sure that the governments are engaged, and then finally working its way back into ground level and the field level, where many companies will have to change their practices. And then we get to the thing like any sector. Some cotton producers will be forward going, and they'll say, okay, we've got to change our business model. We're going to have to completely alter the way we produce cotton and alter the costs of production and alter the methodology and the labour force. And some others will be laggards. And there'll be a fight between the market that demands ethical cotton and the laggards who say we don't want to do it. And you have to look 15, 20 years into the future. And then you'll be able to judge whether cotton has become less impactful and more ethical, just the same as palm oil, and just the same as sugar, which is another very, very dirty and difficult crop, and just the way all of the agricultural sector is going to have to go. It's coming, but the change is coming, but each sector has its own peculiar characteristics, and you're going to have to wait many years to see whether it truly gets made over.
Mining is another sensitive area, which is affecting the environment. So governments are taking very dramatic legislations now to stop either kill the mining industry or it's a kind of a mixed bag that's happening across mining.
Yeah, mining is necessary. The same as agriculture is necessary. You can't be idealistic. You can't be idealistic about it. And one of the issues you'll find working with the NGO movement is that's where the idealists are. I'll come back to your question about the minerals and the mining industry. I'll tell you an anecdote about working in the NGO sector. As somebody who had 25 years working in business, and then I went to the NGO sector. And I managed the programs department, which is a very large department, for WWF for a number of years. So I had hundreds of people working for me, brilliant programs running around the world, lots of money being spent. And I asked every single person who worked for me over 5 years the same question. And the question was, when you come to work in the morning, why do you come to work? I never got the right answer from anyone in 5 years. The answers were always of one sort or another. One answer was, I'm here to save the world. Which generally, I had some people who said, I'm here to save the world. Okay, well, fine. Here's a wet flannel. There's some shade. Go and sit in the corner, and when you calm down, we'll have a talk about why you should be coming to work in the morning. And the other type of answer that was given was, well, I'm a global expert on the back two legs of a certain species of beetle. And I know that you have been given a grant by somebody who also is interested in the back two legs of this particular beetle. And therefore, really, it's my money. So, give me a job because I'm here to spend that money, because that's my career and that's my speciality. And fundamentally, every time I ask the question, why do you come to work in the morning, to an NGO, I got one of those two answers. I never ever got the correct answer, which is, I come to work in the morning because you're paying my salary. And I am employed to come to work and to do a job. And I'm employed to turn up at 9 o'clock, work for 8 hours, and leave at 5 o'clock. I never got that answer from anybody in the NGO sector. So you will find purists, you'll find idealists, you'll find people who take the approach to the mining industry, stop it, ban it. The earth should be left as a virgin. Don't touch it. And they really are Edenists. They want to go back to a paradise garden. They want to deconstruct civilization, they want to deconstruct society, and they want to return to a style of living which never existed, which is a dream. So things like mining have to exist. I again think that for the mining industry, legislation is probably a bigger driver as anyway, as anything. There was you probably know more about this than I do. There was an act passed in the US in 2012 called the Dodd-Frank Act. You've heard about the Dodd-Frank Act, right? So four classes of ore from 4 precious metals that have impact on the vital full supply chains of electronics and gadgets. Just blah. That has had a huge impact, working its way back upstream in persuading very large consumers of raw materials from mining operations to clean up their act and to be very careful about taking conflict minerals, which ultimately ends up back in the country. You won't stop bad mining operations, but you will make those bad operations outside of standard economies. And therefore, they gradually will become isolated, and they will only become able to deal on the black market. And then it's for other people to take care of. You can only do what you can do. That's the best answer I can give. For mining, I think the best impact will be felt from legislation. From agricultural products, I think the best impact will be felt from consumer demand and consumer standards. Basic drivers. CSR.
Within Food Security Act, which you guys working on, it's going to change something about the NGO world. Since the Food Security Act that India is looking at legislating, there's a legislation in the offering at the moment, where food security is going to be given to all the countrymen, something of those lines. Do you think NGOs will have a role to play in that area? One, and two is that are NGOs having a mandate clearly in the area of food security?
My quick answer is yes. If the government has already looked to the NGO sector under the CSR banner, you can bet that they are going to go to the NGO sector again for security. Are NGOs mandated? No, I don't believe so. And I think that they might have a problem when it comes to that point. But again, what the Indian government has done is radical. It's really, really radical by declassifying a lot of giving as charitable. It has suddenly said, well, we're going to grow giving, but we're declassifying it and saying it's not charitable, it's mandated, it's forced. You've got to do it. And I think that's going to have profound impacts. I do know that some governments are very wary of going the same way.
Right.
Because a lot of their social structures depend on charity as it has evolved over centuries. And they're very wary about disturbing the balance. And I have heard some people in some countries say, wow, India has a considerable charity sector anyway. As everybody says, it's a part of the culture to give in one way or another. And I've heard politicians in other countries say, don't expect us to go do that, because that could open up a whole hornet's nest and change the way major parts of society.
But I think they'll come back to know it because if Indian story becomes very successful and they can see a significant social impact, governments have to follow up. It's not a way about it.
If the India story is successful.
Many industry in India, after the liberalization process, has gone through this initial teething problems, and the media is so strong and it's so penetrated. They ensure that the corporate stays its course. Plus, the stock market is very, very closely linked to the corporate world, and therefore the reward or the punishment that corporate is very strong. It's very, very connected.
Yeah.
And increasingly now the CEOs are getting worried about sustainability as a concept.
Yes.
And how they're going to be posturing themselves to be sustainable, of which CSR is a part of it. It's becoming very, very strong. So my confidence stems from the fact that corporate world is very, very transparent, the media is very, very investigative, and the social media is very, very strong in India. And therefore all these things put together, it has to. That's no two ways about it.
And you make it right. I wouldn't venture to say.
Indian corporate not very.
I was just going to say. I wouldn't say Indian corporates are transparent.
No, they're not.
No, they will get transparent. I'm not saying now they are. All I'm saying is that they become, because it's going to be a key component of social development, and NGOs will be a part of it. NGOs will become activists. All right, they will make sure that these kind of things keep coming out of the cupboards. And there will be competition between NGOs. So obviously, one NGO is going to try to put on another NGO. It's similar to capitalistic models where once there is competition, transparency is bound to happen.
I'd make one.
Right Information Act.
Right information.
Right Information Act is being implemented in India, and as part of that, how many activists actually come up with,
I think it's very powerful tool.
It's very, very powerful.
But the thing is, even if you use it, the corporates don't come and have the government, and they will always give you a sentence which is trained by the trained people who are trained to train a certain thought. So it's just going to happen, and you go to just get the same
How many times we keep saying the same thing? See, there is a section 134 which is about reporting, right? And there is section 135 about implementing. Now, reporting once you will say the right thing, second time you will say the right thing. There will be industry pressure to come back and say, and there will be some investigative reporter.
At some point, something will emerge that 10-20% of the corporates who are leading organizations will set the tone, but only for themselves. Even today, you have got great organizations who do a lot more right things and not otherwise. And they continue to do that, and these companies will continue. But then there are a huge lot of Indian corporates who are not accountable to anything. And they don't give a damn. They don't.
That's what I'm saying.
Some of them have died.
It's 80-20.
The funny part is, many of these companies have died even because the owners are okay with the company's dying because they have individually died.
Exactly.
So, as long as the taxation policies is the way to it. So, because a lot of things have to get right before this can get right. And RTI alone would not do it. Although RTI has the tendency to ask some uncomfortable questions.
No, because it's some of all the parts. All I'm saying is, if you get to that direction, it's over a period of time it work. What was India in 1980s and what is India today is a whole lot of difference. It didn't happen overnight, it happened over a period of time. So,
CSR has
I'm very confident about that. I'm very confident.
I think it will take time.
It'll take time, yeah, absolutely. I'm not saying it's going to happen overnight. It's going to be 10, 20 years, 30 years, fine, but we will get there because the young Indian population is getting more and more vigilant. They're getting, look at the election.
Yeah.
Nobody could have predicted there's a party called Aam Aadmi Party, which is just less than 1 year old, is putting a challenge. Now, whether they will come to power, that's a different matter, but the entire political movement was on voluntary basis.
And I do agree that
And social media.
in a free society, the issue of social media will be a very, very strong facilitator. Whether it actually can totally overturn previous models, I don't know, but it will certainly raise the question.
I'll give you some example, connecting the dots. The online space for shopping. I don't know whether you know, about 65% of the sales are happening in tier 2 and tier 3 towns, not the urban towns.
Yeah.
Right? What does it mean? That means people in the tier 2 and tier 3 cities are getting actually more and more aware of what they want.
Yeah.
Second, the advertising campaigns of multinational corporations, the large FMCG companies, is no longer focused on the urban versus the rural population. Now, the same advertising campaign is applicable to all of them. That means what? Their aspiration levels have gone up and they're in line with the urban population, and their awareness level is as much as the urban population. This is all the digital divide, so to speak, that was there previously, is completely gone. Right? Therefore, the sense of belonging, sense of aspiration, the sense of requirement that they want is very, very, very high even there. And given the fact that the government's broadband policy that is coming up, right, which says free internet for all of them, this whole dynamic will change inside.
But I suspect that for all that the public organisation, social pressure becomes facilitated, the issue of whether corporates ultimately are required to move or to reveal will be the deciding factor. I'll give you the example of Starbucks this year and last year. Starbucks suffered a huge CSR type problem over the last 12 months, which was to do with how much tax they paid and how the international accounting structures inside Starbucks was set up so that the majority of the business, where the coffee was bought and where the coffee was sold, was booked in countries with minimum tax payable. Like, whatever the statistic is, let's say 75% of all Starbucks coffee is bought and sold in Ireland. Really? And corporate tax in Ireland is only 8%, so voila, your tax bill goes right down. Well, that's all wonderful, and Starbucks touting itself as a youth-oriented, modern-age, ethically based company got dreadfully caught out in terms of brand when the social media story started to go around about how much tax avoidance, legal tax avoidance, not illegal, perfectly legal tax avoidance was going on. And the short-term impact on sales of Starbucks coffee in countries like, well, European countries, most of them, like the UK and in France and Germany, was absolutely massive. At the click of a button, which is the speed of social media you're talking about, and transparency of issues. From one week to another, sales of Starbucks coffee in those markets dropped 15-20%. Absolutely crippling, dramatic stuff. They repositioned, they recovered, they explained their position to the governments. They put together a counter-argument to the governments, for example, to the UK government, and said, do you know how many youth workers there are working in Starbucks outlets around the UK? If we have to close, how many people is that going to put onto the unemployment roll?
That's a black
payroll taxes that we pay, even though we don't pay these people a lot, we pay payroll taxes on top, which goes to the government. So we employ less people because we can't sustain the model because of the pressure that you're going to put on us. And your tax, not only does your unemployment costs go up, but your tax income goes down. Add that up and see what sort of impact just us, Starbucks, makes on your balance of payments over the next 12 months. And do you know what happened at the end of it? Do you know what the deal was between the business and at least the British government? They made a one-off payment of $42 million. That was it. On sales of $3.5 billion per year. So I completely accept everything you're saying. I'd rather go with the idea that it's going to take at least that and probably a lot more to really turn over the corporate model and the corporate.
That cannot happen at all. The people who frequent Starbucks in UK or USA are totally different profile from the way it works in India. You can't even compare, you can't get into the
It's just an example. It's an example.
Actually, in India, you had, in fact, more serious incidents like run-of-the banks. On ICICI Bank was a run-of-the bank because overnight people had SMSs saying ICICI is going bankrupt, please take your money out. There was a run-of-the bank and there was no time to even sit down and explain to anyone, do anything.
That's rumor monitoring, that's what is going to happen, that's different.
But that's social media, in fact.
That's not social media. No, it's not.
That is exactly why now ICICI spends all that money in creating an ICICI foundation which kind of deals. Why do they need to kind of interact with society a lot more than their own business operation?
True.
Because
That's the risk mitigation. That's always going to happen. And our organization has to do anyway. The point was raising was very utopian lines. I would talk utopian lines. Where you talk about the set A, set B towns, spending money and all that. Yes,
purely from a different perspective altogether. A lot of money from the government initiatives are now going to the secondary towns. Naturally, there's a huge amount of cash flow there, and it's because see the Indian democratic setup is so funny that you take the money out of the corporates, you take the money out of the rich people, and you go for the votes for the poor people. The middle class gets squeezed in between, and is absolutely
No, what I'm saying is also right. The second class of the third class towns are becoming so important also because they have the money now to spend.
Yes,
Because when
exactly.
you have mostly you have
No, that's not the same thing as that. No. See, what happens is they got a lot more money now than they ever had before. A huge amount of their expenditure is now in the aspirational goods because all the old cousins, brothers and sisters in small towns want to tell the metropolitan cousins that they are not getting less, and that's the information flow that they have. So that's a one-off situation. It is not sustainable. Number one. Number two is that the economic boom on the property and everything is also happening. Second, there's also a lot of gas over there. There's a lot of people over there. So these are all when you use new money or we call it bubble money. So it's not going to last for a long time. So what's really going to be sustainable is going to become something totally different. Indian economy continues to become what would I call it as service economy oriented, which is going to be a problem. Because of which the cash flows is always going to depend upon international companies wanting to have operations, service operations in India, which again has gone to 60 pounds, again giving a lot of money to the people, the young people over there who otherwise don't have any information. They are spending the money because they're getting dollar related. So we have to look at those kind of factors.
So you are saying India will solve it.
No, I don't know what I'm making here is
I think the type of pyramids today.
well, India is a very different market.
Don't depend on vaccines.
I went a very funny market. It's not for anybody's cup of tea. Only people like Suzuki, which have been here for like 20, 30 years, or say Unilever, which has been here 20, 30 years, understand this country. Others don't have any clue. Because Starbucks doesn't have a clue. They will come here with the leaders, they will come to open up a couple of centers and walk away. That's the best they can do. You talk to 100 million Indians in 100 cities, you get so much of different data, a lot of data, but see, there's an aspirational element going to be common to everybody. That's not a rocket science here. The real issue is, will you put the money where the buck is? The answer is no. India has 45% black money. It still continues with the big problem in the country. How do you create an economic model which is going to sustain on itself? I mean, this is one part of the argument. There are many other arguments. Many Indians spend money on things which are foreigners will be like, what do you spend money on that for? And why are you not spending on this? And Indians will look at them, hey, why are you spending money on that? I'm spending here.
You know one thing, once
Look at the expenditure on gold in the last 5 years, and you have no clue why the stock market would remain the way it was. Okay, and the gold has jumped 3 times. And the marriages are not compromised with the quality of the marriages at all. And then this country is supposed to be relieved from financial impact. And the stock market is languishing for the 5 years. But look at the stock market property prices for the last 1.5 years. Continues to be high. So this is the investing pattern that India has. Nobody takes it, nobody needs to get it. Look at the disparity between the CEO money and the salary and the lowest economy. That's not, I mean, Europe will get analyzed by the way we build our companies. So look at the employability of most Indians. Few factors are great out there just because you speak English, is that it? But that's pretty much the way most Indians understand
No,
things.
Rathi, what we're trying to say is that ego disparity.
I am giving different aspects of Indian economy, which is why this is self-regulation.
What we're saying is all these disparities exist in the market. But my late statement is that this will become better because the social media and all and CSR coming in. So
Some
be optimistic maybe.
some amount of accountability will seep into the system.
Yes.
Yes, number one.
And I
Hopefully, the famous Indian cynicism and the middle class cynicism will get a little reduced, which probably happened in the elections. But again, I think there's going to be a one-off situation because the ills were so much high, the bad news was so high that the many young people were forced to go to the ballot boxes, which is a reflection of the anti-incumbency. But the point I'm making here is, again, because Indian resilience is too high. You know about the joke about the frog, right? You know the joke about the frog? Eating of water. You know, if you put a frog in a hot water, he will jump out, right? Because he will get burned. But if you put a frog in a cold water and start heating it up, he will remain in the water. He will keep adjusting himself. Then sometimes it becomes very bad and good to jump out. That's us. We don't get bothered when many things around us for a long period of time. The activity,
You're got to carry away by your stay in US.
It's only too much. There's only too much activity. They are least bothered at the point of time. We are too thick-skinned and too.
That's your case. That's your case. If you see the evolvement of the society way back in the 60s to 70s.
You can't compare the two. You don't supposed to compare the two.
No, I don't want to see a rapid progress, yeah? Come on.
But there's a that is not the answer.
It's not. That's for you to see. Now you also change the future. There are too many civilians going in city and thinking like what he said that we're not going to be
the point I'm making here is look at the if you do a quick analysis of the kind of companies which have grown in the last 20 years. Okay, and the kind of companies who has good network has do the basic analysis, you will see that most companies which are working in industries, okay, which have got maximum governmental influence, have done the best. Why? Tax is everything. Tax is everything. That's not any
policy making.
Exactly. So you take care of that and you get taken care of. India is continuing to be one month's
Which company's got the largest market cap?
ONGC.
Sorry.
And
sorry, you got it wrong. That's why you got it wrong. TCS is the largest market capitalization company. It has no problem.
It was the third and not the second.
ONGC is number one. It went down.
The private company TCS is second. But look at the industry. Look at the industry.
ONGC is a government-held organization.
Forget it. Government
Number three. What's the number three? Now, what institution can you call? One is a government organization, one is a private sector, other one is software. Software doesn't have any government.
Okay, let me put it another way. Two of this. The issue is not about multi-sector at all. And if what can I do along the way? Two or three industries talking about dealing with natural resources. Okay, and that's pretty much it. Number two is that the only TCS is dealing with international dollar-pegged, euro-pegged human resources business model. So none of the three belong to you anyway. Anyway.
No, what is it?
I said it. Three companies we're talking about, two of the three are dealing with natural resources.
Yes.
So that's it.
Contract that is
The third model exists only because many American and probably now some European companies have chosen to have certain of their quote unquote not so skilled part. I mean, India and you do some dollar by euro by work there.
That's a competitive advantage.
If you claim that corporates are in only to buy their own agenda, etc., and they are thick-skinned and they're not going to be wanting the public good as such, just by way of the CSR bill, then I would feel that it's because it will actually work contradictory because there was a certain social sector which was working for the public good. Now corporates are getting into that sector for their own good. A lot of money will come from the sector, and therefore the programs which will get priority are the ones related to those corporates, rather than the programs which were being run for the public good. So if that was to be true, this would actually work contradictory.
That's why it's out there. Nobody knows which was going to come. The only thing good that's important
John, would Magic be must be interested in kind of making a portfolio classification and we only do 50% corporate work as part of CSR and continue with our retail funding and retail programs?
Completely, and that's still to be decided within Magic Bus as the case in point. And all of the better run NGOs will have a funding policy, which will have been decided as a classic business analysis. What's our operating environment? What's the opportunity? What's the threat? What's our weakness? And internal viewpoints will be taken into account. And as I said, the wild factor inside NGOs is you get a lot of purists, you get a lot of idealists. So they will push for a self-destructive, self-limiting funding program. They're not interested in growth. They're not interested in more impact. They might be only interested in their bit of the program, the back two legs of a particular species of people, and they only want to see funding for that. So you'll see lack of logic, no commercial sense, but you will see a plan. And most NGOs will say, we want to grow our corporate funding to this, or we want to have government funding of X, or we want to be completely retail. Many NGOs will say, we will never ever take funding from the chemicals industry. We're not going to do that. And many will say, we're not going to do business with airline companies. We're not going to be part of their CSR program. So the answer is yes. It will happen, and as you deal with NGOs, you should know that those filters are running all the time. And just as you are sizing up an NGO, they'll be sizing you up.
I wanted to ask a question. On that, sports for development. Now, you know, the sportsman spirit is the kind of personality. How do you accept defeat? Is there any collaboration with the center and any research studies on that sport?
Yes, there is. Yes, there is collaboration. Is the short answer, and you'll find it goes on all the time. It's a matter of self-interest. NGOs will collaborate with other NGOs on lots of issues. There'll be competition in certain areas, and if you come from business and you move to NGO world, it can be very confusing because, like those two organisations I illustrated, for funding dollars and for broadcast airspace, if there's an environmental disaster, you'll find that they'll compete tooth and nail against each other. You know, if Greenpeace ends up giving an interview in the case of an oil spill, the CEO of Friends of the Earth will call up his communication people and say, how come Greenpeace got the interview with a national broadcaster instead of you? It should be our brand that's up there. So they'll compete viciously. And then the week after that, you'll see them all sitting on a panel together because they've decided they're going to put together a sectoral message funded for all of them with a press statement in support of a government initiative or not, or something like that. So they'll collaborate and they'll compete on the basis of self-interest, so far as the organisation goes. And again, keep making the point, in selecting your NGOs, do be careful that you understand who you're dealing with. Yeah? Because you don't want to get into a 5-year program with an NGO that you think is going to behave one way, and then you find out they're attaching themselves to a program over there that really you don't want to be part of.
Yeah, it's a lot of work done.
I think that's where the skill lies. Identify the right NGO and how to go to partner.
And do see it as a relationship. The most successful CSR programs are ones that take their external relationships with NGOs at least as seriously as their internal relationships with their internal stakeholders. As I started off saying, dealing with NGOs is not the point at which you should sit down and relax. And I've seen it happen time and time again. CSR programs become very internally oriented. It's all about the internal process and getting the stakeholder consideration right and understanding your materiality, because after all, your internal people are paying. They're the ones who give you the legitimacy. They're the ones who criticise you if they don't agree with your CSR program and your CSR recommendations. And lots of people then end up viewing their contact with NGOs as holiday. It's time off. It's an opportunity to relax. And absolutely not.
Question: when you go to corporates, what is the kind of team that you work with from the NGO side and the corporate side? Who all sit together to decide if they should go into the NGO or not?
Well, there'll be competing interests. You as the CSR person might want to get to the program and understand the programs. From the point of view of the NGO, they want to get to your CEO, because the understanding will be that it's the CEO who will write the check. So you as the person in the middle have to make sure that because you will be the person who actually makes the contact with the NGO. They'll have less choice about it. But what you want to make sure of is that you enhance your own status. You make clear to the NGO, to the maximum extent, I'm making the decision. It's my budget. I have already been approved. Because the NGO will say to you, so okay, this is great, we're going to have some meetings, and we're going to do coffee, and we'll do a plan, and we'll have a project proposal. Do you have to take that to a funding committee then? So you have to go and get board approval for that? One person. Want to go and talk to the CEO, thank you. At that point, you have to be able to say to them, I have already been approved. I have budget approval to spend this amount of money in that area. And you tell me why I should give it to you rather than your competitor. And you should pursue contacts not just with the fundraiser, but also with the program people. It would be my recommendation. You do your research, understand the nature of the NGO. Don't believe the strapline, the message. Understand what their DNA is. How many purists have they got working with them? Are they activists? Are they associated with other people? Do all your own research. Put yourself in the position of being the authority. You're the one with the money, not your CEO. And then do get in contact with the program people. Make sure you get out, even if the program involves working with penguins in Antarctica. If your stakeholders say that there's a space in your CSR program to give money to a penguin charity in Antarctica, that probably means you're going to have to go and see what they're doing in Antarctica with the penguins. Don't take anybody's word for it. I'm going to have to wrap up. It's been wonderful to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your interest and your time. Thank you very much indeed. And thank you for the lovely presents. Thank you very much indeed. And I thought of this, and I can be found on LinkedIn. If any of you want to connect, I'm there as John Clement.
All right. I wrote a name. He's got